Hello, everybody. We want to do a quick little straw poll. We're thinking of maybe doing for a special event an in-person podcast taping, and we are wondering how many people in the Portland metro area would be interested in attending. This would be a free event, and we would just record the podcast in front of a live audience so you guys can see what it's like to, kind of be behind the scenes. So let us know if you'd be interested so that we can get a venue that would be big enough to hold everybody, and we will put something like that together. So email me at christy@dodgemediaproductions.com. That email will be in the show notes, and just shoot me an email and say, I'd be there.
Dodges never stop, and neither do our listeners.
You're listening to Dodge Movie Podcast. Your hosts are Christy and Mike Dodge, the founders of Dodge Media Productions. We produce films and podcasts, so this is a podcast about films. Join them as they share their passion for filmmaking.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Dodge Movie Podcast. Welcome to our month of bromance, is kind of what we're calling it. And it's interesting, as I was doing research, some people take umbrage with that
term.
Yeah, thank you. With that term. And I kind of can see what they're saying. They're basically saying, why do we have to give it a name? Guys can have close relationships with other guys, and it doesn't need to have a cute name. And I see that.
I would agree, except that it is a clever turn of phrase. That's probably what keeps it going. But yes, there is a difference between close friendships are viewed between two women and two men. So maybe giving it its own term is a way to legitimize it.
Yeah. So if we say it, we mean it in a very positive, we're pro guys having close male relationships.
Yes, and I want to go further and say, even if one of the two, or two of the two, happen to be gay men, I think you can have platonic friendships.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
And I
agreed.
support that.
Yes.
In all guys.
We are very pro good, deep friendships because we value our close friendships. And I think, want that for everybody.
Yeah. Now, there may be some differences, broadly speaking, between friendships between two gents as opposed to two ladies. But there's also differences in friends, just any given pair of friends. But I think it's good to recognize and celebrate that even if there's not as much eye contact and there's a lot more punching and nut tapping and that kind of thing, it's okay.
Yes, I totally agree. Except for with the nut tapping.
I'd really rather not. But I'm just saying we see some of that amongst some fellows.
Yes. All right, let's kick off episode 90. It is Tag, directed by Jeff Tomsic. It stars Jeremy Renner, Ed Helms, Jake Johnson, John Hamm, Lil Rel Howery, my apologies, Isla Fisher, Hannibal Buress, and Leslie Bibb. The DP was Larry Blanford. We, as fellow cinema people, we want to start shouting out to our DPs. And the writer of the screenplay was Rob McKittrick.
McKittrick.
There you go. And it was based off of a Wall Street Journal article entitled, "It Takes Planning, Caution to Avoid Being It." And this film is based on a true story inspired by a group of 10 fellows from Spokane. And they, as teenagers, would entertain themselves in the schoolyard by playing tag, like a lot of kids did. But the game continued. And so the synopsis for this film is a small group of former classmates organize and elaborate an annual game of tag that requires some travel all over the country. They said in the article that the real group do it in February, but in order for the storyline of this film to work, they had to set it in May.
Not very smart to do it in February. There's snow in Spokane.
Right?
Right?
Maybe they ran around to keep warm.
That's true. Now, I have to say, I'm a little bit lazier than them. I do have a recurring gag with one of the listeners, but it only involves sending things
a form
to
of
each
tag,
other.
Almost, though.
Well, kind of, yeah. We text each other things. Listener will know who I'm talking about.
You have kind of two, though.
Right?
You have two different... I won't say the listener, but you have one where you send them the theme to
Ballers TV show on HBO
Yes.
starring The Rock, future
Yes.
president.
But then with your other buddy, you have a game where it's like...
Oh, the wrong number text?
Yeah.
So apparently I'm creative but lazy.
And then with the kids, we sometimes do, what is it, Sounds Like a Band or...
X is the name of my Y cover band. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Like, can you give us an example so people know what you mean?
The first time we ever heard of it was from Paul and Storm. Oblong Circles is the name of my Oingo Boingo cover band.
It's a fun game. So
It
Mike
is.
probably would enjoy the creative challenge. So if any listener wants to play
Absolutely.
text tag with Mike,
Yes, yes.
let us know.
And or the X is my Y cover band. Feel free to chip in.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking Superfan Lee might be good at that because he probably has a pretty diverse set of music tastes.
Yes. Maybe I'll try to start something on social media, see if somebody will pick up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. I only have one tagline for you, so you're going to have to either take it or leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Based on a true story, we're not kidding.
Bleh.
You think they could have done better?
Well, especially a tagline for a movie named Tag. There's got to be better in there.
Okay. And I sold it right that based on a true story is part of the tagline.
It is.
Okay.
And
I didn't know if I rushed
don't know.
into it and
Wow.
you didn't get it.
Wow. I
Maybe
mean,
I didn't sell. Let me try again.
Okay, let's try again.
The tagline is based on a true story, we're not kidding. Did it get any better?
Nope.
I feel like it needs and we're not kidding.
I just don't think it says anything about the film or about why I'd want to watch it.
True.
Right.
Very true. All right. Kick us off with a pick-up line.
Someone once said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Oh, I remember. I forgot that until you just said it. And I remember I was like, that's so true.
And this supports my theory about pickup lines.
Yes.
That describes the film. That would make a great tagline.
Wait, read it again. Is it too long?
Someone once said, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
It's a tiny bit on the long side, but I agree with you 100%. That is the best tagline.
How about if we just go with, we grow old because we stop playing? We could just shorten it down to that. Okay.
I think that's fantastic. And
Now, in case I seem overly critical of the tagline, I really love this film.
oh, we loved it from the first time we saw it.
But I love it more the more I watch it.
Oh, wow.
I really love this film.
I enjoyed it. Sometimes we watch films and then we're like, oh, let's do this for the podcast. And then we're watching it and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
But this one was just the fun ride that it was the first time.
And tip of the cap to McKittrick, because I caught some stuff in the last watching that I hadn't noticed before.
Yeah.
So it's very well written, even though it's a comedy, right? People tend to think of comedies as being slapstick, again, the nut tapping, that kind of thing. But it's actually really well written. It's got a lot of heart.
Yes, it does.
Highly recommend it. Now, I do want to give a shout out. Some of our listeners have been watching our films, including Mr. Holmes. And listener Udo says that it was a bit slow, though he did enjoy it. This is not slow like Mr. Holmes. This is kind of the opposite.
Yes.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. Well, why don't you, since you loved it, I mean, I have notes, but why don't you kick us off? What are some of the reasons that you love this film?
I think I love this film because it shows a group of friends that I wish I had, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's so appealing to have this group of people that you get together with and they obviously love each other, and even though they're far across the country. So that is ultimately it. And they come there, getting teary maybe even, to support Ed Helms' character Hoagie.
Yeah.
Right? The love they have for Hoagie is touching.
Yes.
But it's touching in a ridiculous way that I admire.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas normal people might do a thing like, we're going to have a barbecue. We will say words where we say what we like about Hoagie. No. We're going to have a ridiculous game where people dress up like old ladies in shopping malls.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, I love it. I love the silliness that goes along with it, right? They're playing.
Totally. And I think that some of the gags in this and some of the lengths that these guys go to, you go, oh, that's funny for a movie, and then at the very end,
Oh, that's the best.
there is actual footage of these guys, and you can see that one guy actually dressed up like the old lady.
Yes. And also another guy surprised the taggy in the shower.
I know.
Okay, now I want you to stop and think that not only did this guy somehow get his way into like the gym locker room shower, but he brought someone to film it. Okay, that level of dedication is very admirable. I mean, I love that.
We both love when calories are burned for another person.
Yes.
And that is a huge calorie burner.
And a thing that just appeals to me that's kind of my kryptonite is I love silliness, right? So if somebody had gone to that effort to just deliver like a bottle of wine, yawn. But to go to that effort to surprise the guy naked in the shower and tag him, oh, that's impressive.
Right. And it's brilliant too, because he's pretty defenseless. Like,
oh, he kind of is. Yeah.
I wonder, they never addressed this. And this is the only thing that bothered me about this movie. They never addressed tagbacks, which were critical.
Oh, there is a point early on when they first get chilly, when John Hamm's character and him are standing there and they talk about no tagbacks.
Oh, I missed it then.
Yeah, it's subtle.
Because that's super critical in the game of
and
tag.
to make it work.
As a kid, it's like...
Yeah.
Because you're kind of immune until that person finds somebody else.
Because otherwise he'd just slap you back. It'd be useless.
Right, exactly.
So no tagbacks is a thing.
Is a rule. Yeah. You almost have to in the game of tag.
Yeah, for it to
unless
make
you're only
sense.
playing with two people.
Now, I want to give a credit to McKittrick because the thing that I noticed the last time through is how much he foreshadows that Hoagie has an illness.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I want to credit the writer is because even though I had seen the film before, I realized, oh, look how well that was woven in there. So it's like subconscious. So the viewer hears it, but doesn't consciously see it as foreshadowing. Super well done. So tip of the cap to Rob McKittrick.
Very well
done, buddy.
Yes. I loved since you're talking about writing, I thought it was a good way to... Because I think most audience members, and maybe I'm just projecting and speaking as an only child, who I agree with you, I would long to have, and I do have a couple dear friends that I've had since grade school even, or high school. I'm so grateful that, we've remained close. But I love the bartender because he's a character I feel like is the audience. These guys look like they're having so much fun.
I want to be part of it.
Yeah, I want to be part of this. And so I loved how he was like, you could tag me. And they were just like, no. Like how desperately he wanted to be part of their group.
And then perhaps my favorite character in the film is Isla Fisher's Anna.
Oh,
right?
Gosh.
And how she is so committed to this. I mean, beyond what anyone else is. And there's this great line where she yells, "You're going to suck my tiny ginger balls." And that captures her character all in one line of dialogue.
She is really funny in this. I mean, she's really funny in Wedding Crashers.
Yep.
But she matches that in this one and maybe even surpasses it.
But again, this is kind of like my kryptonite because she is that character, so incredibly intense about such a ridiculously silly thing.
Yes.
And
almost more so than the guys.
Yeah, almost more so.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually, as I said that, I realized this is like the 24 Hours of Lemons racing guys, that it's ridiculously silly, yet completely over the top intense. Like they take it very seriously while at the same time not taking it seriously at all. I love that, like sweet and sour chicken.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything, I mean, I have notes, but I don't want to, you're on a roll. Why don't you, what
Well, other notes that I have here is cross-dressing is always funny in that over-the-top, like Vicki Lawrence on Mama's Family, like he does.
Yeah.
That's it doesn't matter who it is, but the wig and the flower dress and stuff, always comic. And then what sells it is they have actual footage of one of the guys dressed in that same over-the-top style, which to me that's hilarious because if you saw someone dressed like that in public, you would assume that it's somebody dressed in costume drag, right? You would never
Totally.
assume that was a real human.
And while we're talking about that, again, props to the costume department because they like almost to a T got the actual.
Oh, I love that. And that also tickles me because there was a production meeting at one point where like the director slid a photo across the desk at the costume department and said, make him look like that.
Yes, absolutely.
And they had to go find that. But it's funny because it's almost like if you saw someone in a nun's habit, you would also assume it was a guy dressed as a nun up to some sort of silliness.
I actually worked on a film where a man was dressed as a nun.
See?
And at one point he had to go outside to film looking up at a window.
As you would.
And we were all inside. And it was comical to watch the people walking by because he had a beard and, so it was very obviously a man. And yes, it was entertaining. In fact, I have some great pictures of that film set. That was fun.
So this raises the question of what is the opposite gendered version? Like, is there a costume that if you put a female actor in it, it's always funny?
Well, a good thing for our listeners to call in or write in.
I will mention one of our listeners was upset that he listened to the episode too late and felt like he missed out on a prize. And I want to encourage people that if we offer a prize in a podcast and it hasn't been claimed in a month when you listen to the podcast, feel free to chip in because it could still be available.
Yes. So I have a question.
Yes.
This is a spoiler-filled episode, so if you haven't seen it, here's your warning, because we're going to talk about spoilers. How did you feel about Leslie Bibb's character kind of breaking the spirit of the rules in a way and coming up with a scenario that kind of stopped the game or paused the game?
Well, I didn't like her at all.
Are we supposed to...
No.
After the reveal, when she apologizes, are we supposed to go like, oh, okay, I get it. It was her wedding.
No.
And so she's justified in lying.
I think from a story perspective, she exists to heighten the sanctity of the game. So it's kind of like when you would put a little salt on the watermelon, the contrast reminds you of the sweetness.
Yes.
That's what she's like. She's there to serve as the existential threat to the sanctity of the game. We're supposed to not like her. She's the villain.
I wonder if that happened with the real group. Was there a wife that was just not down? Like
Yoko.
Yeah. So do you hold any animosity towards Jeremy Renner's character in going along with it?
So, no, oddly enough, because I feel like they establish, and this is key for the end scene, that how much he clings to never having been tagged. So he is almost as committed as Isla Fisher's character, but in his own way, right?
Yeah.
And that, to me, makes sense why he would allow her to do that thing, even though it's evil. It's really bad. Now, I have to say, I actually think Leslie Bibb is probably a very nice woman.
Right.
But because she's this tall, pretty blonde, she gets cast in that role in several things because I think that the twist. So I'm very curious. She might be incredibly pleasant as a human, but man, that character in this movie, really there is nothing redeeming because faking a miscarriage, that's pretty bad.
It's close to like faking cancer.
Oh,
or something.
yeah, that's really bad.
Yeah.
So that character was drawn that way, I think, specifically. Yeah. But it's a great question about his character. To me, it landed as that was his commitment to kind of winning. And then, touching at the end, he's willing to get tagged.
Yeah. For Hoagie, really. Yeah. No, it's a great ending, and it's a great example of breaking tension.
Yeah.
Because it was so... that end scene is emotional, and then they break it with comedy.
Right.
So well done.
Yeah, and again, you bring in Isla Fisher just going nuts. That's so fun.
I think I read in the trivia, I think in that scene where she tackles, she tackles Chili.
Right.
She hurt his shoulder.
I wouldn't be surprised. And that just, the level of commitment is so admirable.
Yeah.
I love it.
She would be a super veiny hockey mom.
Totally. Although now that I think about it, right, Sasha is that level of committed when he does some of his stuff. So, wow, that must be a wild party.
Yeah. I have a note here, and I can't even remember this part, but they use a reporter to give I know. Because a reporter is interviewing...
John Hamm's character.
John Hamm's character.
Name.
Bob. And so using her to kind of to go along with them, and using her as kind of to explain the exposition of the film and the past tagging scenarios that have occurred.
I also made a note of that. It's not the first film that has thought of this, right? But there needs to be a way for people to give exposition in something like this, to give kind of the background rules. So I thought that was reasonable.
And I liked, I thought it was, I so give kudos to the ladies from Pen 15 for nailing kind of like childlike behaviors. And I loved the scene where they showed the game rules, and because it was all the different forms of paper. Like there was a yellow legal pad, and there was like wide ruled and college ruled. And I feel like there was even, the ratty spiral paper that they didn't bother to take off the little nubbins. And so that's such a kid thing. Like, oh, we need to add that rule. And so they would just be scribbling the rules, and they were stapled together. And I liked, because to me, that's a flavor of childhood that I remember.
That they would keep them.
Yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like, oh, no, we got to keep the rules.
Yeah. Right. And especially that the rules over time would evolve based on different scenarios that.
Right.
Like, okay, no funerals. Like,
right. And like,
although I think in the trivia it says they
really
did. In real life.
But like all good rules, it comes from a famous incident, right?
Yes. Okay. I have a friend who I think she said 4 rules were added to her school's clothing
dress code.
Yeah, the dress code. So she proudly said this. So. Right.
I should be so lucky. I don't think any have been named after me. Right.
It's a good thing. How about, this one isn't like for cinematography. I don't think it's going to win any awards. It always looked good. I think almost always was in focus. But was there anything that stood out for you?
The one thing that I really think is noteworthy is when we first meet Chili. He's in an apartment a couple floors up, and he flees Anna and Hoagie. Somehow the camera is attached like at his waist looking up, like actually attached to the actor, because you see him running down the stairs. I thought that was a really fun thing. I can't remember ever having seen that before. Yeah,
I did have a note, and I didn't understand the context, but now that you say that, I said, as Hoagie is chasing Chili, they put a GoPro on him to see him running. And so, yes, we see back looking at Chili.
Right.
We see the POV of the GoPro is looking up at Chili, not looking forward at what he's seeing.
And it's like, you can tell it's rigidly attached to his waist, and it just is such a neat effect.
Yeah. Well, I think because when you're playing tag, like, your face probably goes through a bunch of contortions, especially he's kind of doing this almost like parkour move down, through a part. It's ridiculous. And seeing the anxiety on his face of how close is Hoagie behind him. And
you probably missed this, but I'm a podcast veteran, so I was doing all the faces while you were talking for our listeners to see.
That nobody could see. This isn't a video podcast yet.
Podcast veteran.
Yeah. Let's see. I loved the sound, the music.
Oh, the soundtrack is great. I've got all the songs.
Yes. I loved any time, like there's a scene right after the scene where Chili jumps out of his apartment, and Hoagie, Chili, and Bob are all standing kind of in a triangle, and they're each just slapping one another. And there was this great like chest. I don't know if I could replicate it for the
thumping. Yeah.
We'll see how that plays. I'll either leave it in or take it out. Anyway, it was better than what I just did. So kudos.
The Foley people took a little bit more time.
They have a little bit more time and stuff. And then there's music that ominously plays while Bob is walking to the conference room and Ed Helms is in
janitor.
Yeah, it's the opening
garb.
scene. And so we don't know, I mean, other than the title, and people who probably went to this film probably knew what it was about. So maybe it was a little bit, but at first, if you know nothing about this film, if somebody just turned it on and you didn't even know what it was called, there's ominous music, and Ed Helms is obviously in a disguise and a costume,
a bad one.
Yeah,
but yeah,
and John Hamm's character Bob is walking towards the conference room, and he's like oblivious.
Yeah.
So I like that. All right, let's see. How about head trauma? Now, in a film called Tag, and it's a serious game of tag, I'm assuming there's going to be some body trauma at the very least.
We do have, I have a handful of head traumas.
Yes, lay them on me.
The first, which I think is hilarious, is in that aforementioned opening kind of scene, Bob tries to throw a chair through the window, and it rebounds into his own head.
Which, I'm sorry, had to have been difficult to film, but is probably one of my favorite scenes because I didn't see it coming. So
it's really well done. That was at 4:40. Then at 25 minutes, Jerry uses the no hands protocol to throw Bob toward Hoagie, and Bob slaps Hoagie in the face.
Hands protocol.
And, well, they call it that.
No,
you can hear the capitals. The swinging log trap knocks Chili ass over tea kettle at 53:57. And then the last one that I have note is Hoagie takes some powdered donuts to the face in the AA meeting at 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 4 seconds. It's like Jerry throws like a nonstop, same as Snowballs and Elf, right?
Yeah.
Of powdered donuts. So I kind of a little bit of cinematography, but I did love how they cut to slow-mo for a lot of these things. I think that enhanced the comedy.
Yes, definitely. Now, this is probably more of just a straight comedy, but did we have any romance? Any smoochies?
Smoochy. I don't have a note of smoochy. So the smoochy I thought about perhaps was the wedding, but I believe that there was an incident that prevented smooching at the wedding.
I believe you're correct. How about a driving review?
So we've got a fair number of vehicles involved here. So first of all, I thought it was a nice nod to our vehicles that Bob's executive car was a Chrysler 300, not a Mercedes or something like that. So that was nice.
It's probably they got a little kickback.
Let's hope that would that be Daimler at that time they made it, FCA, but let's hope Chrysler was on top of that. There's a 1990 Honda Civic that serves as a stunt airbag for Chili's departure.
Oh, that's right.
That was rough. A special note goes a very rare vehicle. There's a gold 1982 Dodge Rampage in the background at one point. Rarely seen, the Rampage. The minivan that they rented was a silver 2017 Chrysler Pacifica. Not your normal choice for any sort of heist shenanigans.
Right.
So the question I had, though, is was this an SRT model? Did they drop in like a big V8 in it and it had a little more oomph than normal? Lastly, I would mention there's some chase scenes in golf carts. And the Easy Go RXV golf cart is offered in 2 power plants, either electric or gas motor. And there is no way that was electric, because when you put 3 people on one and 1 person on the other, they wouldn't go to the same speed. So it must have been the petrol engine that was powering those. But interesting, the golf cart company gives you the option, electric or gas.
I recently rode in a gas-powered golf cart with Superfan Lee, and
nice.
It would sporadically backfire.
Wow. Okay. That's probably not by design.
No.
And it probably scared the pee out of everybody.
Yeah, me more than him, he said. But it would, because you couldn't guess when it would happen.
Well, Superfan might be used to loud noises that happen without warning. So maybe he was okay, but
it was not fun.
Yeah, that's generally not good. Your engine shouldn't backfire.
All right, should we go to the numbers?
Let's go to the numbers.
All righty. This film from 2018, so pretty new film.
Rather.
The budget was $28 million, and it made almost 3 times that. Almost $55 million domestically, $77 million worldwide. And since it wasn't that long ago, but adjusted for inflation, that would be $55 million domestically. It got a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes. Critics and audiences agreed, gave it a 56%. So actually rotten, I think, technically, because I think 60% is fresh.
I may have to drive around the country and sack punch all of those people.
All those critics. Well, I know. I'm really surprised it's this low because it's a really good movie.
It is a fantastic film.
It's fun. It's just fun. Okay, so it was filmed in Spokane, Fayetteville, Georgia, Peachtree City, Georgia, a lot of Georgia. I've got, Stone Mountain Golf Club, Stone Mountain, Georgia. So they went to Spokane for something, maybe to school when they were young, and then did it all. Atlanta has a big filmmaking community, so I'm sure that that's why they did that. It's just comes in at an hour and 40 minutes. It's not that big of a commitment. It is rated R. I think I did look it up for superfan Sandy, and it does have 62 F words. So.
But I'll have to say, I didn't notice one of them.
I didn't notice any of them.
However, perhaps Isla Fisher could deliver 61 of them.
That's true. So true.
Yeah.
Yes. And it is, so therefore it is rated R. But I mean, gosh darn it, we just love this one.
Love this film.
Golly shucks.
Golly shucks.
So that concludes our episode of the film Tag as we kick off the bromance month. Next week, we are going to talk about I Love You Man, so stay tuned for that. As always, please send us emails, give us feedback, let us know what you like, what you don't like, and you can always leave us a review. That helps out, or give us a call at 971-245-4148 if you have any notes, suggestions, feedback, or just want to leave us a message. And never forget,
Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.
Thanks for listening to Dodge Movie Podcast with Christi and Mike Dodge of Dodge Media Productions. To find out more about this podcast and what we do, go to dodgemediaproductions.com. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, and tell us what we should watch next. Dodges never stop, and neither do the movies.